Hey everyone, this is Chris. You're listening to the Dad Regime podcast. We're going to start this episode with an interview that I did over the school holidays with Richard from the Brick Zone. Brick Zone is a cool little Lego exhibition up in Maleny, just near the Maleny Dairies. They have the most amazing personal collection of Lego on display, from Star Wars to Pirates of the Caribbean. And while you're there, you can build your own Lego creations and then take them home. It's a fantastic morning or afternoon for your kids and family. Richard and his family run the show. Super nice people. We'll definitely be going back there. Following the interview with Richard, I've got Simon and Rob. We're going to discuss some issues affecting youth and then some mental health issues for men. We actually recorded this a little while ago, so it's been on the back burner for a bit, but we are happy to be presenting that to you now. Remember to hit us up on social media, subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you soon.
So tell me about Brick Zone. How does this start?
Well, it just started as, you buy a few sets, of Lego, and as a kid I had Lego, but not a lot because, your parents didn't buy you a lot. But then when I had kids with Catherine, obviously I got an excuse to buy more Lego. It's nothing better than having children, to give you an excuse to buy Lego. But so we sort of collated quite a few sets, but when we moved to Maleny 3 years ago, we really took off in terms of, we had the space, we had the shed.
Yeah, right.
And the shed being 25 by 12 metres, it's quite a sizable shed.
This is a pretty spectacular venue, so you weren't looking for a venue to host your Lego?
No. And we only brought, from Brisbane, we only brought about 25 tea chests with us of Legos, so we had a fair bit, but not a lot.
Yeah.
And those sets were all still intact in bags. And so we brought all that up and started doing a little bit of a display. But once we saw that we had the space, we really exploded.
Yeah, right.
And we've probably done most of the Lego collecting in the last 2 years.
Yeah,
okay. So 80% of this would be the last 2 years.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Because I noticed what drew my eye the first time I came was the Star Wars exhibition.
Yeah.
And you've got a pretty extensive collection there, so that's been something deliberate that you've been focusing on collecting.
Yeah.
Those ones?
Yeah. Daniel, my son, he's mad keen on Star Wars. We both are, but he knows everything and is obsessive pretty much. But the Lego Ultimate Collector Series Star Wars sets for me are the pinnacle of Lego.
Yeah.
There's only about 24 of them in the range, so it's not too hard to collect 24 sets of the Ultimate Collector Series. If you want to collect the wider series, you're looking at over 500 sets, so very hard to collate, but we're getting there. So with Ultimate Collector Series, it was quite doable to get them. I had to be incredibly resourceful to get some of them because a lot of them are worth, $800, $1,000, $1,500 per item. So, I was on one particular trip, I even made an offer to a guy in Melbourne on a Monday, and he accepted the offer, and I flew to Melbourne on the Tuesday to collect 22 Ultimate Collector Series sets.
Oh, no way.
And on the Tuesday was Melbourne Cup, so I actually went to the Melbourne Cup. And then the next day pulled all the sets down at his place and put them 55 kilos of Lego into suitcases and brought them all home.
Wow.
And then rebuilt them all and probably sold 2/3 of them, but kept the third that I was missing.
Yeah, right.
And all up, from the sets that I sold, it didn't cost me a thing. So I got pretty much 8 sets for nothing.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, except for the trip, of course. But I mean, that was all paid for within the resale of the other Lego. I was not down on $1.
Yeah, right.
It's great.
So we're sitting at a big table covered in Lego, lots of kids and adults putting stuff together.
Yeah.
Is this the remnants of your collection, or do you source this from somewhere else?
Good question. Actually, this probably half of this might be the remnants of our collection.
Yeah, right.
So sadly, in there is stuff that I would love to pull out, but unfortunately, it's been picked over by too many people and taken home. It's gone. SpongeBob is in there. Yeah. The early Toy Story stuff is in there. It's not coming out, so it's gone. But then I do buy some bulk Lego from time to time and tip it on the pile.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so do you have a selection criteria for what you put on display? Is it like seasonal or?
Well, we did do the Ultimate Collector series, the Star Wars one, which might have been the one that you saw. Then we did this year the 20 years of Star Wars Lego. So we sort of featured every X-Wing and every Millennium Falcon through the Lego line that they've ever released, and that was a bit of fun. Then we're going to, our next one, which we're going to put up probably later today, will be Lego as seen on TV.
Yeah, okay.
So we're going to be putting out, displaying all our sets from TV shows.
Yeah, right.
So we'll have, things from The Big Bang Theory, Flintstones, even the original Mickey Mouse cartoon that they've released in the Ideas range, the SS Willy, The Simpsons. There's so many TV-related things that they've released. So we're going to put all those out on our plinths and get people to come up and have a look at those. And as usual, just build from the Lego table and,
So you mentioned before about not having much Lego as a kid, and now your son, diving deep into this. That wasn't obviously something you had to encourage. That was a pretty natural thing.
It's sort of it's strange. He's almost a carbon copy of myself when I was.
It's funny how our kids are like that.
Yeah, they are. They pick up some of the genes, and so I was never really sporty. I was always inside drawing, being an artist, and that's what I that's my job sort of thing. I'm not sure if he's as creative, but right now, he's spent his whole holidays so far just building mocks. So he's just working on a Star Wars, not even sure what it is. He knows what it is, but it's it's an on-ground rollable Star Wars type machine thing.
Yeah, a custom built.
Yeah. So he's just spends hours and hours on it, but it's great because he's engineering, he's solving build issues, problems, the different ways to use the blocks.
Yeah, as a parent, it's pretty hard to find a flaw with Lego, isn't it?
Absolutely.
As a thing to spend time on.
Yeah, well,
but also just the creative outlet.
Yeah. It's educational, and I think the mock element of it is really the key to Lego. Always has been, but Lego obviously make their money through. Well, a lot of it's been through theming their sets. So kids will buy the Marvel sets, or they'll buy the DC or the Star Wars or the Harry Potter, and those theme sets. And that's great, and that's what I actually do. And I don't do any mocks, so I'm very not creative when it comes to Lego, strangely enough. I just like to enjoy Lego's creations. Yeah. But the beauty is that when all those themes have gone out the window and the kids have just chucked it all on the pile, it's when they sit down and actually build something from the imagination like they are at the table now, is where the value is,
Absolutely.
And that's why the mock side of things is so amazing. And I'm glad it's developed that way,
And going that custom route as well.
Yeah.
Having a venue like you've got where your son's then going to build something and then put it on display for other people to see.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother aspect of the creating.
It is, yeah. So we're also working on another concept which we're just trying to. We've pretty much got the concept down, but we're just struggling on the logo at the moment. I've done a couple of prototypes of the logo, and Daniel doesn't like them, so he doesn't think they're Lego enough. But it's hard to make a logo Lego enough without looking like it's too Lego, so Lego don't get cross.
Yes, it's Lego-ish. Lego implied.
Yeah, that's right. And so it's called MockCon, and what we'll do is it's like a mini mock convention.
Yeah, right.
And so we're going to do spaceships, or space will be the theme, so anyone can build their own mock, in the months leading up to, and then on the date, everyone can bring their mock here, and we'll have judges and prizes.
Yeah, right.
And they can bring in, there'll be like an adult section and then a kids section, age groups,
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, just have the whole room they can bring them up, and I'll have more plinths made so they can see their work on a plinth and make them feel like they've really created something special.
And then putting it out there for people to see it. I think it's a big deal,
and get feedback and all that sort of thing. And they might win a prize as well. So
that sounds awesome. if people interested, where do they go to see you? Where do they find you?
So we have the Brick Zone Facebook page. So just type in the Brick Zone, and that's easy to find. We do have a website as well, which is the Brick Zone. Again, just .com, I do believe, .com.au. There's all the information's on there, but really the Facebook page is obviously the most, up to date in terms of what dates we're doing, what displays we're doing, when MockCon's going to be on and all that sort of stuff. So,
excellent.
So that's probably the best place.
All right. I appreciate you sharing some time with us. Thanks, Richard.
No worries, mate. Pleasure.
Cheers.
Thanks for coming again.
Oh, again? Oh, good. Yeah, we'll be back again, I think, as well.
Yeah, that'll be awesome. Yeah, good. Thanks, you.
Mate.
I had the pleasure of hearing Jan Owen speak this week. Are you familiar with Jan Owen? She's the CEO of the Foundation for Youth Australia. I think that's what it's called. Foundation for Youth Australia. Yeah. I gather that they're pretty much a research foundation, obviously targeting young people in Australia. She started by telling us this statistic that there's, and of course this is a couple of days ago, so everything that I've remembered is probably wrong.
Or much bigger statistic. Yeah.
But we'll get the gist. There's about 6.5 million young people in Australia, and I can't remember what the demographic that she used was. It was either under 18 or between 15 and 22 or something like that. About 6.5 million young people in Australia.
Okay.
But 750 million people of the same age in the Asia Pacific region. So 6 million versus 750 million. And her thought, or what she asked us to think about when she said that, was for us not to think about how our young people are going to compete with Southeast Asia anymore, but how we're going to collaborate, because at that number, it's not about competition anymore. It's about collaboration. How are they going to survive and collaborate in the coming years? And it really hit home when she was talking about her discussions with industry. She was referring to big multinational companies who are telling her that they're no longer recruiting based on achievement, that they're recruiting people on attitude and then training for skill. So we're going to pick the people that we like and then we're going to show them how to do their job. And I just thought that has massive implications for the school system.
The companies in Southeast Asia?
Yeah.
As opposed to Australia?
Yeah. No, in Australia, the Australian companies that she was talking to, but big companies that do have roots into Southeast Asia as well.
So you're not going to have to send a CV anymore?
Well,
with your qualifications,
your CV is going to need to look very different. Like, I mean, it's always been the case that your references have always had more weight than perhaps anything else that's on your CV. But more so, it seems as though the raw scores from your high school education, tertiary education, simply are going to matter less and less and less.
It's almost like the report comments.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
You look to the grades, the report comments are generally ignored.
Yeah.
So in the future, it'll be now these grades will be, for content, will be less important. Now it's about how can you communicate, sell yourself, market yourself, collaborate.
Exactly. So the skills that she was talking about that young people need were exactly as you just said: confidence and agency, creativity and innovation, enthusiasm for ongoing learning, ability to critically assess information, working with others, communication, project management, financial literacy, digital literacy, and global enthusiasm and citizenship. Nothing that she talked about was about test results, GPA scores, anything like that.
But to a degree, there'll still have to be some foundational reading. Yeah, the three are, aren't there? And it'd be interesting to see who will decide eventually on what are the basic requirements of literacy and numeracy for kids, and how does that align?
And financial literacy and digital literacy can't be done without those things.
No.
They're foundational. I just found it very interesting at a time when Simon and I are writing report cards and looking at summative assessments. And as someone who has, rallied against the importance of summative assessment, going, gee, there's so many kids who I want to be able to tell or show them how well they're doing despite their grade.
Yeah.
And so many parents who I wish I could tell the grade's not as important as you think it is. It'd be great if they could actually take feedback about what they're doing a bit more rather than just be trying to get the A all the time. And here's the research, here's the evidence that's showing that kid who's got the enthusiasm, who's really motivated to keep trying and is prepared to fail, that's the kid who's probably got the spark, the entrepreneurial spark to keep going, rather than or the type of person that these industry people
will
are
be
looking
sought
for,
after,
rather than just the kid who's driven just to get the high achieving score, because that's what success has traditionally looked like.
But that's the thing, success has looked like that for so long, so that's going to be a long haul to try and actually change the mindset in a lot of people that way, because for so many of our parents everywhere, it is purely down to A, B, C, D or E.
Yeah.
And as simple as just looking at a letter and deciding whether or not your kid is actually making it. Which is, why we have the benefit of having conferences with these parents and actually chance to meet with the parents and speak to them in person and say exactly what you're saying. Yes, they're not quite showing it through the summative assessment, which is the one way that I have to give your child a letter next to their name. However, this kid's going to make it in one way, shape or form. And you can see that with certain students, with a lot of students from a very early age. If they're just already determined and focused and nothing's going to get in their way, it doesn't necessarily come down to how well they tick the boxes and run around their hoops.
It seems as well that the Western world it's what we measure and value. So we measure and value content, and then we measure and value content through summative assessment, and then we measure and value content through summative assessment on an A to E scale. And as a result of that, kids are pigeonholed. We know not many D kids have ever much of an opportunity of becoming a C, because the way the bell curve goes, it almost guarantees they're going to be there forever.
Yep.
And I think with this focus around a lot of countries on trying desperately to feed in some of these 21st century skills, which we actually talked about before, didn't we? It's interesting, but I think the reason why they are quite nebulous, they're trying to make rubrics and things, but it's what we just said, it'll take a while because the teachers are of the same generation. That a lot of teachers, you have some who say I agree with 21st century skills, others who are absolutely not. This is just watering down the content. So you see these battles happening.
But even for me, I want to promote those things, creativity, innovation, collaboration. I still find myself having to tell my students that, no, guys, this is an independent task, because I need that data against your name, and it's very hard to measure creativity and innovation and collaboration in any kind of rubric. So you even though my passion is to try and get that, it's really hard to do it without the tools to measure it.
Yeah, and I think what you said, if it's this idea of 6 million versus, what would we say, 750, this word of collaboration, I mean, you've also got this other agenda, it's not an agenda, this other idea that's happening, that we're getting quite multicultural anyway. So even though we're saying 6 million Australians against 750, they're amalgamating. So it's probably not going to, it might not be as bad as we think. It might be, though, that the education systems of that 6 million could be different to the education systems of the 750. And we know that's different because the Asian education system, having taught with a lot of Asian countries, it is different. It is very content. And yet they envy often a lot of the creativity of the Western countries. especially in China, I was reading, they're now bringing in creativity more because a lot of kids are very good at content, but they can't do much with it.
Yeah.
They can regurgitate it, but no.
Yeah, and that's despite their outstanding OECD data too.
Absolutely, but even with the OECD, I mean, you take China. China's so big; they're only looking at Shanghai as a tiny.
Yeah.
It's like going to say Australia, but we're only going to take the richest areas of Melbourne.
Yeah.
You know, and we're going to base the whole of Australia on that.
Yeah.
And that's what Shanghai does. It's just a tiny piece of the pie. So you're never going to be able to compare yourself with a tiny that at all. You know, but it's
Which of those areas do you think is the hardest to encourage out of our students? I'd say enthusiasm, global enthusiasm. Is that a really negative thing to say about the kids at the moment?
I think sometimes I think that we do push global awareness on kids before they're ready for it, like before they have a. Sometimes they're just coming to terms with that their world is bigger than them, let alone that it's bigger than their country or that, you know what I mean? And
the concept of it is completely.
But I think empathy is something that, like that's the stepping stone. Like just having empathy for others is where you become a global citizen. I think real communication is actually the hardest one.
Yeah.
We get good at asking kids to stand in front of the class and regurgitate the same stuff that they're all going to do, but actually talking to each other and sharing understandings and collaborating as communication. I think that's probably the part that's the thing that it's where we fall down, I think, in classrooms.
But I think perhaps, again, that comes back to what you were saying a couple of minutes ago about what's the end goal.
Yeah.
You know, when our main focus is, okay, you need to, for example, create a piece of writing that you're then going to get up and present to the class, and that is how I'm going to grade your ability to present orally or to speak in front of a group.
Yeah.
You're knocking the enthusiasm out of any part of that task in terms of the collaboration because they know there's an end goal. Well, I've got to produce this and I know I'm going to be graded on it by the end. And I think that's, when I made that comment then about enthusiasm, I think that's the hardest thing to overturn is, do you get that enthusiasm back by taking away the summative assessment and the focus on, at the end of the day, we can tell the students as much as we're like, it's great and we're going to do this and I want you to show me how you can do this in as many different ways as you can. But at the end of the day, you're all the same and you're just going to end up with a letter next to your name. It's pretty sad, isn't it? I've lost enthusiasm myself. just by talking.
Let the air out of the balloon.
But what you said, I mean, it's like, if kids are working in groups, what I found in the last 2 or 3 weeks working in primary and high school, I can sit with a group of year 2s or year 7s or year 9s, and they're very good at telling me what makes a good collaborative team. They can just charm them off, even down as year 2.
Yeah.
Oh, we need to work together, we need to... But then when you actually get them in a group, they've never been given much explicit direction as to what their role is. Or even what you said a minute ago, when you hear them all listening to each other, if you were to stop them and then turn to a kid on the floor and ask them, what's your role here? They don't know. Because no one's actually taught them. They're sitting and they're getting bored.
Just sitting waiting for my turn.
So their experiences often of collaboration is, that means I've got for the next half an hour, I'll get to speak for 1 minute and listen for 29.
Yeah.
And that's not collaboration.
Our collaboration means that during our presentation, we'll each say the same amount of stuff.
Yes.
We'll share the 5-minute presentation. We'll share that evenly between us. It's not didn't come up with the thing together. One of them did it, and the rest of them just shared the presentation. Something like that. Yeah.
Isn't that? Don't we all do that?
But that's
because we've all just managed that through life.
That's because we suck at it.
Yeah, true.
I think that's what we've always sucked at it. I think we're very individual in terms of how we go about things. And I know there's that. What's that saying about that? We shouldn't ask teams to do things that can be done by an individual. Ring a bell for someone?
No.
But then it means it's easier to blame people if it doesn't go right.
Yeah, sometimes we get into a group to do something that really one person just should have just done it and then perhaps shared what they have done for feedback and stuff rather than a team having to do it. But then there's so much of what we do that would be better if we truly did collaborate and work on it together. So, yeah.
It's got to work harder on it.
I think it's also for teachers. I mean, it's if you're trying to teach kids to collaborate, there's rubrics and things available, but often it's turning those into tangible elements. The kids find it really hard.
Yeah.
I mean, what is your role mean? What does work as a team? Listen to others. I mean, they're always very nebulous statements, and the kids, they want more. Even getting kids to write their own. Sitting with some year 7s last week, just saying to them, okay, this is what an adult thinks you should be doing on the rubric, because usually the student rubrics are written by adults who try to put themselves in a student's mind, and then they expect the kids to do it, and then the kids read this and think, what are you trying to approve here?
Yeah.
This is not what I think. Yeah. I don't want to.
How do I intuitively demonstrate that as compared to efficiently demonstrate? Yeah.
And consistently. Independently.
Because even last week, 1 year 9 child said to me, and it made me think, they were looking at the rubric on citizenship, and they actually said it was actually a week before the election time, so it was actually quite political. Yeah. And this year 9 said to me, she said, Rob, when I read this, it's almost as if it's forcing me, I have to be green. Because it's talking about I have to be sustainable, I have to be renewable, I have to be this, I have to be this. She said, I've got nothing wrong with that. But it's like, you can't be anything else. She said, surely, you can be a global citizen. She said, because like 80% of Australians don't vote Green, but they're still global citizens. So I thought, how astute this person is in year 9 to be looking at it through that lens.
Yeah.
She'd be an A.
She would be.
Yeah, if only she was sustainable.
Because I saw Michael just briefly today, and he mentioned something on that. So you must have.
Dave probably shared it. Dave and I went down to this seminar.
Got it
together. So yeah, he probably shared it with the.
But to me, it's like of that 6 million Australians, we know probably 30-40% are already from Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
If you go to Melbourne or Sydney, that's what it is.
Yeah.
So it's almost. I don't think it's going to be that big a deal.
No.
It might be for people in Australia who are in the remote, just.
Well, actually, not in the remote.
White only.
It's just in the outer suburbs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You might find that they'll be isolated.
Because they're the people who I automatically thought of was the
One Nation.
Not just One Nation, but on the my child is gifted and should be on an ICP and should be achieving, should be being pushed through the school system, and that child isn't developing any relationships with their peers because they're awkward with themselves, don't have self-awareness because the parent does everything for them. They're the exact sort of student who in the past would have gone through high school, university, achieving highly, would have been recruited by an organisation based on their results. Now that type of student may be at a disadvantage because they won't have the recommendations from teachers, coaches, professors or whatever, because they simply don't have the communication skills to promote themselves the way.
So do you reckon that's a lesson learned then by these larger corporations and these larger companies, that they're slowly just realising we've got all this intelligence sitting there, but we've got not a single person amongst them?
One of the statistics that Owen was using was that something like, and again, a couple of days have gone past, so something like these heads of industry were saying that 70% of the graduates aren't adequately trained for the jobs that they're giving them. Now, where that blame falls, I don't know. And it does sound like one of those arguments that you hear from every generation. These kids these days, they don't know anything. Like it sounds like one of those things that we just continually hear. But they're spending millions and millions of dollars retraining university graduates.
Yeah.
So if they're prepared to do that, they're going to spend that money on someone who they believe is worth that money.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is anyone you got a topic you want to?
There was something I did want to talk about, but it's really negative.
Oh dear.
It's about male suicide, so I don't know if I want to. Do you want to talk about it? I don't really have like a go-to for it either. It's more about statistics.
Male suicide.
Yeah, it's a bit much.
Well, the last one that we put out was one we actually recorded 2 months ago or more.
Yeah.
And it was depression statistics. And it was research that I found, and we ended up having a conversation about it. It was actually a really good conversation.
Yeah. I think the reason this struck me...
I mean, I don't know much about that at all. I'm trying to think what I...
Well, this is, and that's the thing, is sometimes about what do you bring. The reason I mentioned it to Chris earlier this week in terms of would it be something we could talk about was, like last week was National Men's Mental Health Week.
Okay.
Because, we have weeks for all these things now. Sure. We have special days, international days for this and that. And we were driving home in the car, and they just pulled up the statistic about suicide, and I physically gasped in the car that there are 6 Australian men commit suicide every day. So you're talking upwards of, they reckon on average about somewhere between 45 and 50 Australian males a week who commit suicide.
What are the background stats? Are they in the farming? Is that
then? So I did a bit more research into it, and they sort of there was an article I found where it spoke specifically about the demographic, then the categories of males. So that the biggest, the highest number of deaths will be males in the 30 to 39 years age group. Okay. Most likely to be like a manual labour job or working in construction.
Right.
They said another large area would be teenage boys. So sort of between, obviously, 14 and 18, 14 and 19.
So teenage boys more than teenage girls.
Yes. And they said it increased from 2015 to 2017. It increased by 77%, the amount that were doing it. 3 of those 45 men would be Indigenous men living in, remote or regional areas where they're really under-resourced and the community issues. Older men working in industries, talking about the mining industries, a lot of these fly-in, fly-out people who are spending huge chunks of their lives by themselves. And just, statistics in general, of the people who committed suicide in 2017, 75% of them were men. So that's that's a big swing.
Do they go? Are they able to get the statistics? Assuming they leave suicide notes and things. Were there any statistics about like some of the reasons or the geographical location?
Because that would only be reported too.
And they said that again it comes. This was a radio, just a small radio broadcast, and again it was brought up because it was Mental Health Week, and it was obviously done to bring awareness to it, and I was in the same boat as yourself, Rob. Initially, if someone had asked me about it, I wouldn't even be able to put a ballpark figure on what I expected. But to me, it just, even in a nation of 23 million, six a day consistently is shocking, and it's to me it's made me sort of question it over the last week as to what are the triggers, what are the points behind it, and how is that going to get better? Obviously I think a lot of people are quite positive about it and having things like, are you okay day? We have a designated day now where you check in with people, is definitely bringing it much more into the consciousness of, of the public. But is it really getting rid of the stigma, I think, that's attached to speaking to someone? I don't know. I don't think there's really an answer. No. I'm not looking for an answer.
Often there's not many signs. Because my cousin, he committed suicide at 21. And he was like, his parents had no idea. He was like doing well at his second year at university. He's doing well, and then just one day, gets up, goes to a train station, throws himself in front of the train on the busiest station in the UK. And you just think, and even now, even though I knew him fairly well, you just think, what was going through his mind the day before? Had he planned it out the day before? Had he planned it out a week before? What about in the morning when he goes off with his bag on his back? It's that whole idea, but he didn't tell anything, just off he goes. Yeah, it's like, and as his parents, you could never, you just can't understand how much even now you could never. It's like you blame yourself. You blame yourself.
You question everything.
What did I do to trigger
back
it? Did
at every event, wondering whether you should have done something different.
Oh my God, I shouted at him a week before. Did that trigger it?
And I think that's the thing. When you talk about communication and talking, it is obviously so important to be able to have those conversations and actually turn to someone and just go, look, I can see it. I can see you're struggling. I can see you're not doing well at the moment. Is there anything I can do? But I think there is a big stigma with a lot of males specifically, that it's not within our nature to have those conversations. We don't socialize for those purposes. No. I've never socialized in a women's group specifically, not as a man, if that makes sense. It doesn't make sense. But that would be first port of call, I think, with women socially, is what's going on, how are things,
Because it would be interesting to know if they're naturally, because this person was a natural introvert. My cousin was very introverted. He would just keep himself to himself. It'd be interesting to know on those stats, are those people...
Yeah, there wasn't much into that.
These generally are people who just...
Well, what's interesting, when we had the discussion last time about the depression statistics, was when those tendencies were starting to spike. And I think it was 13 for girls and 16 for boys. Yeah. And then I think the data that we had then suggested that it started to decline when people got into their 20s. But obviously, with the suicide rate being, what age did you say it was most frequent?
30 to 39.
30 to 39. So once you are in that mental illness state, it's obviously something that sticks with people for a long time. It's not going away. And it'd be easy to suggest that, people get to mid-30s and they're not happy with their life and stuff like that. But I wonder whether that's the case. If we're trying to identify mental illness traits in young people first, that's probably where it starts to develop.
Yeah, and I think, to match in with that, what you're saying about, mental illnesses, all the outside influences as well. You've obviously got to incorporate, alcohol and drugs into a lot of that as a situation as well. I mean, it's easy to chuck those words at it.
But I think is introvertism a trait or a symptom of something to look for? Is it? Because to me, it just makes me think about that. Are there people who, is it often, if they were, I'm not saying you could do this, but if you had like that Myers-Briggs type thing, would there be more introvert people who identify in that suicide percentage than extroverts?
And yet on the flip side of that, how many young pop stars, movie stars, and yet they seem to be the most extroverted.
But are they? Often they're not, though, are they?
So then is it they're
often introverted.
Is it the perception that there's something wrong with you and you have to be someone else? And if you're living with that, this innate feeling that who you are is not who you should be, and so you're trying to be someone else.
Yeah.
Armchair psychology.
If you're being extrovert, you've got to think, because we're not psychologists, but to me, extroverts, you have to have some self-belief that you're confident.
Yeah.
And therefore open to talk, open to chat, open to discuss.
But that's me.
Yeah.
That's me. Like I'm a naturally introverted person.
You are.
You won't see me on stage. You won't see me putting myself out there. I consciously do it as a personal challenge because I know it's something that I either want to do, need to do, or I'm going to benefit from it in some way.
Yeah, and I suppose it's allowing people to accept that it's okay to be like that and not have to feel, as you say, that you're different or you're not normal because you can't express yourself. You don't go out with people on the weekend. You'd rather just be in at home.
Yeah.
But there is just a social attachment to all of that isn't.
It's just a coincidence, I suppose. It's really like being introvert doesn't mean you're more likely to be suicidal.
No.
It's just that it happens to be you have that tendency just to think through things yourself, because we know, you can get yourself really worked up with the depression, the anxiety when you lose control.
And perhaps the trait that of being an introvert that you're targeting is that just internalizing everything, whether you're introverted or extroverted, whether you are taking everything and just letting it sink in and then dwelling on it over and not having anyone to talk to about.
And if you bring it internal,
trust anyone.
There's no one to rationalise it. No, my analogy would be like when you have a hole in your tooth, you put your own tongue into it, it feels like a candy. Yeah. But if someone else looks at it, they'll say, "Don't be so stupid. It's like 1 millimetre big."
Yeah.
Whereas if it's you yourself, think, "Oh my God."
Yeah.
Panic. I don't want to disturb you because I'm going to be. Maybe it's starting on a much bigger scale. I don't know.
And that's what it comes down to is I don't know, being willing or being able to even open up to somebody, or even to have the opportunity to do so. And I suppose in some of those situations, maybe people don't feel that they have the resources there to even speak to someone, whether that be a professional or be someone close to them. I do feel there's such a blokey element to so much of our culture. And again, it's, within the article it said, that there's a real she be right attitude to so many people's opinions on things that but we're not developed really to deal with that. And I think sometimes, and I don't know whether we all feel the same, but there have been situations where somebody has opened up to me and I've immediately gone into panic. I'm like, I need to deal with this. I need to be supportive of this, but holy shit, what do I don't know what I'm saying here. I don't have the expertise. So you kind of go, look, you'll be all right. You'll be all right.
I think you hit the nail on the head there, because everybody, take for granted the usual routines. You walk into school in the morning. How are you, Chris? Fine. That's it. We ask, but we don't want to know. If you say, actually, I'm not okay.
Yeah.
People are, oh shit.
Oh God, I don't have time for this.
Mode now. Oh, what? No, I'm fine. And the people who ask it don't mean it. The people who reply just think, I'm not interested. Yeah. So it's just, how are you, Chris? Fine, thank you. Go.
And I think, again, it comes back a bit, perhaps to that introversion. Is that the right word? I don't know. I think I might have made up a word.
Introvertilism.
Introvertilism. Yeah, that's good. That's better. Or just not having those people around you. Not, if you're working one out, if you're just working by yourself, or you're constantly flying from here to there, you don't have a base. For me personally, I feel now, I'm a bit older, I've had experience with people around me with mental health, and that I would be much more determined to help and assist, but I think I would have to be really close to that person. And that's the thing, you have to be really, really close to that person to even have that opportunity to go, look, I can see you're struggling. And you can have mates who you've known forever and just go, it's probably easier just to not bring it up, even though you can see it.
Thinking you might burden someone else.
Yeah, or bring it up.
Mate, I don't want to worry you.
Yeah, but I think it wasn't. I said there's no major answer. I think it is good that there are more public and social conversations about it now. I do feel it should happen more often, and people should be encouraged to try and speak up about their issues. And you have seen it happen. You have seen footy players or sports stars or whatever being able to come out and say, look, I went through this. And again, everyone says, they're really brave for doing so. And it is good, because we need people like that. We need influential people to make others appreciate that it's doable and you are able to do it. But it definitely just made me sit back and go, yeah, I need to do it more often, instead of just sitting at home thinking, oh God, that person's struggling, or that person told me today that wasn't right, and I know things aren't right at home, or whatever. To just double check in. And
that's sort of the premise of almost how we started this, wasn't it? It was none of us really know what we're doing.
No.
And if we're not going to talk about it, then how will we ever work out that there's a better way to do anything? So, yeah.
Hopefully we'll learn.
You were right. That was really depressing.
Chris,
Yeah.
what's on your playlist this week?
We've got to plug the Dad Regime's very own. I can't even think of it off the top of my head.
What have we got? I didn't even know we had something new to share.
No, Pretty Jesus. Pretty
Yes.
Jesus have released their new EP, Mushroom, which we played one track of on the last podcast.
Yep.
And I'm almost certain we'll play another one at the end of this podcast.
Yes.
But it's available on Bandcamp. I think it's $5. Worth checking out.
Get 'em,
Worth
obviously.
supporting a group who's been supporting us with music and stuff as well. So get on them.
Yep. Catch them live in a few months, hopefully.
Yeah. What's on your playlist?
So mine is a TV show, and I know I'm preaching to the choir here because it's a British comedy, and I know we're both in the right company here.
I'm intrigued.
It's a TV show called Detectorists,
Oh, yes.
which I don't know, have you seen it or watched it? So we are slowly making our way through season 3, or series 3, I should say, as a UK TV show. Series 3, not season. But just a really wonderful, quaint, funny show about a couple of guys who go out and detect for metal, and they're called detectorists, not metal detectors. The running joke throughout the show. But yeah, Mackenzie Crook from The Office is
The
kind of the
Office.
only other thing he's ever
Yeah.
done.
Pirates of
the Caribbean he was in.
Yeah, with the eye.
Yeah. But I just love the gentle nature of it.
Yeah.
It's just really beautifully done. I mean, he writes and directs all of it. The humor isn't, it's not crude or slapstick. It's just gentle, simple jokes. The scenery is beautiful. The music's stunning.
But still enough to make you embarrassed for characters.
Yeah.
I've only watched the first season,
Yeah.
but there was a couple of those episodes where I'm cringing.
Yeah. And towards the third, I will say the first and second are better than the third series. So
Right.
I'm not trying to put people off
Yeah,
not
yeah.
watching season
Stop
3.
after season 2.
But yeah, just the situations in which they find themselves being slightly useless men who don't really speak up for themselves and say the right things at the right time. But I watched the first 2 seasons upon recommendation from my dad a couple of months back, just during holidays. And then I've watched them over again with my wife, because I thought, I think actually she'll really enjoy this, and she has. She's loved it, which is really good, because we don't watch a lot of British comedy together because she thinks it's stupid. So yeah, it's been really nice to watch that and go through. So.
Detectives. Rob, what's on your playlist?
At the moment, I've just on the Spotify one. Occasionally, you get to the stage where you just want to start looking for a bit of new music. So there's a playlist called Front Left. Now, I must admit, there's quite a few songs on it as it's modern that I just fast forward straight away. As soon as the too much rap starts, it's like. But often there's usually I know if I listen to those 20 songs, 2 or 3 of them I'll just select off. And it's just been interesting, and that's where I got into Tones and I. But it's just been interesting just listening to some new tracks and new artists. And a couple of them, there was Eliza and the Delusionals. It's just a track comes on, I like that, I hear it again, I pick that up. And then for some reason on it was just a not a techno one, an old one from the 80s, just from the Dream Academy. And it suddenly got me going into, I'm finding myself, even driving here this evening, I've gone back into new wave, new romantic 1980s sort of stuff. I'm just regurgitating those again. And they actually sound pretty cool again. No, my daughter heard one, it's like, is that a new one? I said, no, this is like from 35 years ago. She said, oh, that sounds really good. And yeah, it's been interesting. But hearing your conversations about the British comedy, I know that Chris is a bit of a fan of some of those ones. And my wife and I, we often just like them because they plod.
Yeah.
There's no canned laughter. They plod along. You sometimes have a bit of a smile.
Yeah.
And I remember Stephen Fry actually spoke once about, I can't remember all he said, but someone asked him once, he said, what really is the main difference between, say, British comedy and American comedy? And he was like, well, really in British comedy, if you think about all the famous British comedies, the hero is actually a fool.
Yeah.
Life breaks him down. You take people like Basil Fawlty,
Yeah.
Blackadder.
Yeah.
Life throws everything out there. Whereas in American comedies, he said they tend to have to achieve everything, and they're all brilliant and they're fantastic. And he says that's the thing, but we can identify with these losers,
Yeah.
like The Office, just a complete, loser, faulty. For God's sake, man, just don't do that. You know it's going to end, and that's why and Australia's in between the two, but they tend to identify with those characters because he said life is full of those characters. We can't all be heroes and wonderful.
Yeah.
And it's that ability to think, yeah, I know someone just like that. and that's
It's actually me. More often
It's
than not.
actually you.
All right, that's us. See you next time.
So, yeah.